Hey everyone, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? It's Thursday, so it's time for more genealogy chat. So I look forward to chatting about genealogy today with you. I'm going to be talking about some of the unique finds that we as researchers may overlook when we're at the archives and doing archival research. So if you are just joining me, welcome. Again, my name is Lisa. I am the owner and creator of the Are You My Cousin blog and website. And I'm happy to have you guys here. If this is our first time meeting, know that this is a fairly casual live. Please feel free to drop comments in the comment section as we go. I do see those comments and try to make sure I get everything answered for questions people might have. So as we let people come in, if you don't mind, you're welcome to drop in where you're watching from, or maybe you've had a really good find this week in your research and you want to share that. Hey, Flo, from rainy, windy Corvallis, Oregon. Well, guess what, guys? It's raining here too. It's raining and cold. Melissa, you are here. Oh, Melissa, I'm so glad that you are here. Guys, if you do not know Melissa Barker, she is the archive lady. She is not only a genealogy researcher, but she is an actual archivist. So I was hoping you'd be here today because you can probably, I'm sure, joining in our chat and let me know what kinds of things I might be missing or overlooking. So hi, Nicole from Fort Wayne, and Deb is here. Yay. Good to see you again. Good to see you again, Catherine. Oh, did I put it at 3 a.m.? I probably did. Okay, funny story, guys. I actually almost missed the live today because it's been really busy this week. And with my family being here last week, I was a little slow getting things going, but that's all right. I made it. So that's the good thing. All right, I am so glad you guys are here. So one really important thing I want to tell you about before I actually get into talking about what we can find in the archives is, yes, Flo, everybody does love Melissa. You're absolutely right. I do too. And Melanie's your first time here from Michigan. Wonderful. So glad that you are here, Melanie. All right, so right off the bat, I want to let you guys know I have my old family photograph masterclass that I am teaching tomorrow. That is November 5th, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to put in the link in the chat. I will put it in the discussion as well. So if you are watching this on a replay, either on YouTube or Facebook, this is actually an event that is time sensitive. So it's happening actually tomorrow, November 5th. It's who is in that old family photograph. So we are going to go really deep into how to identify those unknown photographs that we have in our collection. There is a charge for that one. So you'll need to head over to the link and read all about what's included and how to register for that. Just so you know, you do not have to be there, watch it live, because anybody who registers ahead of time will get access to the replay and all the handouts. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out there. You probably got an email about it as well today. Hey, Barb, good to see you. And hey, Danny, it's good to see you from Ohio as well. All right, let's talk about some of those records in the archives that we might overlook. And I'll be honest, I overlook them. I have overlooked these as well. And in looking to see what was out there online, I actually came across a photograph of my fourth great grandfather, quite accidentally. So obviously things are out there. Obviously I have missed things as well. So I really wanted to share this. I did share this in a post recently, and I wanted to get you guys thinking about what else might be in an archives. Typically, just so you know, I typically am working in state archives, but this absolutely includes smaller, like county archives, such as that Melissa works in. I have started really kind of making sure that when I'm researching in a particular area, I'm checking out what local archives that they have and what materials they have, because I have been bad about not necessarily taking advantage of all the types of local archives that could be on the ground in the county where I'm researching. And some of those folks are actually digitizing more and more online as well. So I'm missing it online, but I was also missing it in person. So that's sort of what started this whole line of thinking about what am I and what are we as genealogy researchers missing in the archives. So when we research in the archives, we're typically looking for those records that are not online, right? We're looking at court records. I know I look at deeds. I look at all kinds of special collections that might be out there. So those are the kinds of records I'm looking for. I might look for tax records, estate records, depending on where the location I'm at. So those are the kind of those traditional genealogy records that we're used to looking at, that we might go to the archives for. But there are a lot of other things that we might be missing. So one of those things that we could be missing, this is actually an online type of resource, would be transcription projects. Now, I know a lot of us have participated in transcription projects with Family Search, particularly back when the 1940 census came out, but we've participated in some of those types of things. But there are a lot of archives, state and county level, that have transcription processes or transcription projects going on, as well as genealogy societies that are out there that have ongoing transcription projects. And these are really fabulous ways for you to, one, really hone your skills on reading old text as well as transcribing it. You oftentimes learn about an interesting piece of history, or you learn about documents and records you might not be familiar with. So it's really helpful to use this. No, they may not have your ancestor in it. You might get lucky and find your ancestors in it, but it's a great way to give back to the genealogy world, but also to assist those at the archives, as well as further your own education for genealogy research in general. So I would encourage you to do that and look for those. Another one would be family photo collections. Now, I'm actually pretty fortunate because I research in North Carolina. The North Carolina Archives has a really good presence on Flickr. And there are a lot of archives at state and university archives that have Flickr collections, photo collections on Flickr, which make it easy to see what they have. But if they're not online, that's okay. Ask them. It's the kind of thing I hadn't thought to ask about until I was actually helping a fellow researcher. And he said, Lisa, could you see, I know that this house exists in my family, but I'd like to get a really good picture of it. And I think, it's not in good shape anymore. He said, could you check with the archives? Because it was a historical house. And they had, sure enough, of course, they had photographs and documentation of the historical houses in the state. It never occurred to me, but they have photo collections, not only of like housing type things, but they have it of family where people have donated photographs, or they've appeared in special collections. And I don't want us to overlook that kind of thing. All right, I see some comments. So let me just peek through to make sure I'm going good. So, hey, Dave, it's good to see you. Hey, Teresa from South Carolina. Good to see everybody. Catherine said that Melissa, the archive lady, helped her with a Tennessee death certificate. Yay, way back. Yes, we've all been doing this for a while, haven't we? So I would encourage you to look at the photo collections, the digital or on site. So that was one thing that I had done recently. I mentioned at the top of this that I had, in researching for my recent blog post and this particular YouTube live, I had just been doing some search. I was looking for examples. And so many of you know that I research ancestors out of Surrey County, North Carolina. Beautiful part of the state, up in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. Absolutely gorgeous. And so I knew that they had an active genealogy society up there. I went into their society website and discovered that they had a link to the digital collections that are at a genealogy repository up there. I went into that and was flabbergasted at what I could find. Not only did I find the photograph of my fourth great grandfather, I know who donated it to that particular repository. And so I know which repository it ended up in. I know who donated it. So yes, somebody's going to be getting a call from me. So I had that, but I also discovered, never even dreamed about this, I discovered membership rolls from churches in that archives. Now, I would not have thought to look there for that. I'm not sure where I would have probably started at the church first, but it turns out that these were at the county level archives, digital archive site. So they weren't at the state level, they were at the county level. So it really opened my eyes to some of the things that could be out there when it comes to photos. Melissa, if you want to add anything to that, if you're still there, feel free to, as far as photographs that might be, that we might be overlooking, types of photographs that we might overlook as well for that kind of thing. Another thing would be when you're in the archives is to look for actually records from foreign countries. So in general, this was an interesting thing. And I don't know how widespread, although I think it's probably most all of the state archives probably have some kind of collection like this. So this is actually something that might be unique to the state archives of North Carolina, but I kind of doubt it. But they have a foreign collection records area that spans anywhere from 1585 all the way up to 1783. And typically it's records from foreign records that contain information about North Carolina, so about the location we're in. And one of the examples I found, which I now need to go research, was let me make sure I read this right, Scottish records for the Church of Scotland in the North Carolina archives. So it's a collection of records. It pertains to some of the early settlements, because we had a lot of Scottish settlers come into North Carolina. And I realized they're right in the archives, and I can go, I need to go look for those because I do have some of that background. Didn't realize that was there. So I would actually ask about those. And that's probably what I would do. You know, if you're not really sure, it's just ask the archivist. They know what they have, and they can definitely help you out with that kind of thing. So, but keep your mind open as to the possibility that those types of records could be there and could be helpful to you. All right, so Melissa said, the archive lady says that ask to see, when you go to the archives, unidentified photographs. All the archives have them, and you may be able to help identify some if you know what your ancestors look like. Oh, that's perfect. That is perfect, Melissa. I think I remember you telling me this a while back, and I'd totally forgotten. But yes, well, when people make donations to the archives, they don't always know exactly what they have either, right? And so they will keep them, but you can help out with that. I'm seeing some of the state archives out there who are actually putting them in their Flickr collections as unknown, or as collections from photographers, negatives and photos that were donated by the photographer's family, and they really have no idea who they are. So they're putting those kinds of things out there digitally, but also certainly I'm sure there's so many more that are not actually digitized. That's a great idea to ask about for those unidentified photographs. Hey, Grace. Grace says she's new to genealogy and having fun finding your ancestors. Welcome to the world of genealogy. You're going to love it, and it's very addicting, right? Hey, Wanda, it's good to see you from Alabama. So yes, there's a lot to do, Grace, but just enjoy the process. Okay, another thing that you can find in the archives that you might not have thought of would be like club records. So, and when I say that, you know, our ancestors enjoyed societies. They enjoyed getting together. They had interests that they would do, so they would join clubs. And a couple of, you know, there might be a book club. I found records for a women's social and literary club in our archives. I've seen collections of yearbooks, as we know, newspaper collection clippings, meetings, minutes. All of these clubs will oftentimes show up in those particular areas. And so what happens is then, you know, somebody has created a scrapbook, or somebody has, you know, just created a collection of clippings and things that pertain to that club that eventually find its way to the archives. Absolutely, you want to check for those club records, particularly if you are researching female ancestors, because oftentimes that's how you can start to document your female ancestors' life and where they are and when they were there. Melissa said, yes, look for the local photographer collections. Oh, Melissa says, look for the female ancestors who were members of the garden club. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you might find those, and I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, you can find them at the state level, but you definitely want to be checking local museums and local county archives for those types of records. They typically will end up at that lower level, smaller regional type of archive, I think, but they can certainly end up in the state level as well. So yes. We were talking about the photographer collections at the archives. Those are really good if you know, because if you know a photographer was in a certain area and you know your ancestors live there, that's another place to, check for those types of photographs as well. All right. What about photographs from businesses? Yes. So Melissa said for those club records that local archives, historical and genealogical societies usually have them. Yes, absolutely. Catherine found her mother in the garden club news in the papers. Isn't that cool? I love the newspapers for those for the club societies. But it's interesting, Catherine, you might want to check locally to see, are there other records there that you might see more evidence of your mom or projects that they did? That would be interesting to see. All right. So what about businesses and your ancestors' occupation? Because, work and supporting their family and their occupation was a big part of their lives. So you can find photographs of businesses and some of the business records at archives. You can find them at the local and the county archives. You can find them in Genealogy Society type of archives as well. So that's a place to do. You could even find some I found them in university collections for local areas in, like regions in a state, particularly if it's like maybe a college that focuses on agricultural studies. They might have thing about agricultural businesses and influential people in various communities in their collections as well. So that would be an interesting place to start to look for those as well. And I guess we have to say, I talk about the club records, we're talking about the business type things, and why is it you would actually want these things? Yes, they are kind of hard to find sometimes. They take a lot of effort to find, but it really tells us about our ancestors, things that are important to our ancestors. And when it comes to tracking ancestors who are particularly difficult, those brick wall ancestors, particularly those female ancestors, we have to know what was important to them. And if the garden club was important to your female ancestor, it has to be important to your work as a researcher, because it enables you to kind of track her and put her where she is. You might find her doing things with other female cousins or siblings, or like maybe a mother or grandmother. So you might start to understand the family unit better and understand some of the relationships between the women in that community and other people. So that's why it's important to make sure to be comprehensive that we're looking at those kinds of records as well. Now, one of the ones I like to share about are the cemetery surveys. These are some of my favorite records to look at. And my kids, I know they're young adults, but they still think I'm a little nutso because I love cemetery research. I love studying about the cemeteries and all that. And they think I'm just mom's just crazy again. But anyway, you guys understand. Cemetery surveys. These can be very, very helpful. These might be at the state archives, depending on the age of them. If it's depending on the agency that is in charge of these, if it comes through the state archaeological division, it's probably going to be, at the state level records. It could be local at the county level, just depending. But cemetery surveys, typically what I find with these is they're collections of records for those small family cemeteries that are out and around in the county or the state where I research. The ones, we see them driving down the road and you see, a little family, what was obviously a family cemetery with 4 or 5 stones. And, I always kind of wonder who, what was there, why is it there, that kind of thing. Well, they will do surveys of these. And some of them are done by just individuals who fill out the paperwork because they want to preserve it. They're interested in preserving the history. Maybe it's on their property now, whatever, but it might be done by the individual. It can also be done by corporations or, like, say, builders and contractors. If they're getting ready to build in perhaps a neighborhood, they're getting ready to create an entire subdivision, but there's a cemetery there, then they need to perform an actual survey of it to make sure that it's undisturbed and that they follow the state and local guidelines for development around that. So those are important pieces of information that we can find in the archives. And it's actually a way to discover sometimes if you know that there's a family cemetery, if you've kind of seen a family cemetery mentioned, either heard it at the dinner table at Thanksgiving, or if you've seen it mentioned, sometimes you'll see it mentioned in deeds, old deeds, they might reference a cemetery. Then that's the next place to go look to see if there's been survey of those records in your area. So that's a really nice little find that you might find in the archives as well. So I really like to stumble across those. They're very interesting reading, as well as they have, if you get lucky and find a family cemetery or a small cemetery where your ancestors are buried, oftentimes you can find information on who is responsible, who is the last known living family member that is part of that family. I've actually seen genealogies, like short, small family trees included on those. So they're definitely worth looking into for those cemetery surveys. All right, let's see. Hey, Deb said the Missouri Mercantile Library has city business directories online. Yes, finding those city directories online is so wonderful. And I'm glad to know that the Missouri ones are there as well. It's really helpful to have those directories and to kind of know where those ancestors were working, what kind of jobs they held. And then you can actually tailor and narrow down your search when you're at the archives for possible records or possible photographs in their photograph collections there. So I'd love to know, what is maybe some of the most unusual things you found at the archive that you were just like, whoa, I had no idea this was at the archive. If you have one of those examples, pop it in the comments. I'd love to kind of see what you're finding there that you hadn't thought was there before. I am always just so surprised when I go in and realize that these little pieces of history that might be saved were there, and I had no idea that they were there. I know one thing while you're thinking, merchant records. So logbooks, merchant records, account books for the local general merchant, it can be found there. I found those sometimes, and in it I would find, the IOUs and who would purchase what, but I would also find these little slips of paper, and it might just say, one spool of thread, Sally Smith or whatever. And I thought that was so interesting. Just everything from just a full-on ledger to these little tiny slips of paper, which I thought was a really unique type of resource. What that also told me is, because I was finding women who were mentioned in those records, who bought the thread, who bought the dressmaking supplies, is I was finding women and I was documenting women that way as well. So that's another really interesting way to find that as well, or to find those female ancestors. Melissa, business license records at the county court clerk's office. Excellent. That's absolutely, I hadn't thought about that. So that would be an interesting thing, going to the county court clerk's office to where someone would have registered a business under a business license. So that's a really fascinating one to do. That brings up another thought, and I haven't finished researching this project, but one of the things is, I had a great-great-grandfather who owned a still. He had a turpentine still, lived in eastern North Carolina, and you make turpentine out of pine trees. And we have plenty of pine trees in North Carolina. And he actually had a still, and everybody always made sure to say he had a still and it was legal. He had a license for it. And I've not gone to get the license for that. I need to look that up. But a still license. I think he probably had one that wasn't licensed as well, but that's another story. Catherine said the Tennessee archives have information on the War of 1812 regimental histories. Excellent. Your Middle Tennessee ancestors served as one of them, and when it was called West Tennessee. Nice. Yes, so you can find information on individual units, regimental, and histories on regimental units in the wars, such as the War of 1812. As Catherine's mentioned, you can find them for other wars as well. But it's really interesting because Tennessee had one of those kind of, as it was a developing state, and it had the kind of different names at times. So that's a really nice place to go and find those types of archives, to find those types of records as well. Definitely, you will find some unique military records sometimes. Here's a tip for that, in the fact that, and I haven't always been really good about this. Again, I've kind of learned, I really just kind of learned as I went along. But a lot of state archives, or a lot of other archives as well, will have a military archivist or someone who specializes in military history. That is the person you want to talk to if you have any questions about researching your particular ancestor for a particular war, for a particular, tour of duty, that type of thing. They they know, I mean, that's their specialty. They know what's there, what they have. And if they don't have it, they can absolutely help you and point you in the right direction. I've taken advantage of that a couple of times and found it to be very, very helpful just to be able to have someone who had that idea of what was going on there. So I would encourage you to reach out to the archivists that are there. Oftentimes we don't always see, because we just see the people working at the desk, those who are in the search room, but oftentimes there are other ones who are out and about that have a real specialized interest and that they can help you find what you're looking for. So yeah, there's just tons of really interesting things to look through. The other thing you can do if you ever have time, and I know time is something that many of you guys tell me is such a short supply when it comes to research. When you get into either a digital collection for an archives or an actual archives, go through their finding aid. So sometimes when I'm on a digital collection, I'll just start clicking around. I just set aside a time. I'll set my timer so I don't get too far down into it. And I go into see what they have. I just start looking and exploring some of the different collections that they have. And it really sparks my imagination. Maybe imagination is not the right word, but it sparks my creativity for thinking outside the box and getting out into some of those less traditional records and recognizing some of the records that were created I would not have thought to look at before. So that would be something I would encourage you to do. Nicole's asking a question. She said she's trying to locate information on the GAR. Would that have it possibly? I am not sure what you mean by GAR. Do you mean DAR or GAR? And with the archives tab. So can you clarify that for me, Nicole? And I will try to get that answer for you. Let me just look something up really quick for that. Yeah, just if you'll clarify for me, that would be really helpful. Catherine said GAR has a grave registration project online. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, yeah, Catherine said Grand Harmony of the Republic. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so you can actually, if you just put in the GAR grave registration project in the Google, you should be able to come up with that link. So thank you, Catherine, for sharing that. That was not one I was familiar with. So I love learning from you guys as well. I appreciate that. Okay, the Grand Army, yeah, of the Republic. Yes, so that's a great resource. Who knew? All right, guys. A couple things I wanted to make sure that you are aware about. Again, don't forget the masterclass tomorrow on photos. Don't forget, Are You My Cousin is going to Alaska in June 20th through 27th, leaving out of Seattle. So that is actually, I will have that in the comments below in just a moment. But if you're interested in cruising to Alaska and learning about genealogy while we're there, I would love for you to go with us. And, oh, this was a big one. I meant to tell you guys. Ancestry has a sale. I just saw this one hit my inbox this week. Ancestry has a sale on, I'm going to grab that link for you, has a sale on their DNA kits. They are now $59, which is a really good price. So I will go ahead and drop that into the comments section for you guys if you're interested. I know as we start to get into, November, December, we start to see sales coming up, and I know a lot of you are interested in the DNA sales. So I'm going to pop that in there. Full disclosure, that is an affiliate link for me there. So yes, they have it up, and as I see others, I'll be sure and pop things into the Facebook page and Facebook group as well. That one just happened to catch my eye in the inbox yesterday, so I wanted to make sure I got that out to you guys. All right. Last little bit. If you are looking for other unique types of resources in the archives, feel free to head over to the website. I have a post over there that goes into more, and I'm going to grab the link for that and pop that in there for you. And you will probably notice, I did forget to tell you this at the top, I have been making some changes on the website. If you go today, you'll notice right away it looks different. And I'm really excited about it. It should make it easier to find things, and it should be able to kind of give you a taste of some things that maybe you may have missed on the website previously, some of the blog posts. this is kind of an ongoing process. So just be patient if things, if you look for something and it's not there, but it shows back up the next day, just, yeah, be patient with me. We're still kind of ongoing with that, getting everything squared away on that so that it looks cleaner and it's easier for you guys to navigate. So I think you'll really like it. I hope you do. I like it. So anyway, I will see you next week right here again for our Facebook Live next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And I hope you guys have a great day. And thanks so much for joining me. I really do appreciate your support. Those of you who are new to finding me here live and those of you who come every week, I truly do appreciate the support that you show me with that. So have a great day, guys, and I will talk to you next week.